Thank you, Emily. And very, very big thank you to my big, wonderful friend, Nancy. And, you know, our wonderful friend from the Muranga County government, who was instrumental in Muranga County approving one of the world's first specific policies on agroecology, started with talking about gaps. And this is what we would like to be addressing in the agroecology TPP. So I'll give you a quick overview of how the TPP structures its domains based on critical knowledge and implementation gaps to accelerate agroecological transitions. But this is a TPP's perspective from 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And luckily, we will have some other perspectives as well to then inspire all of us to think about, in novel projects, a project that the TPP should be doing in the future. What should we be focusing on? So I'm really looking forward to the day. But before I forget it later on during the day, I would like to say a very, very big thank you to Emily, our wonderful facilitator. If you could all clap for that. And also to the entire secretariat team, that is Rodrigo, Sandhya, it's Fabio, it's Daria, who have worked relentlessly to making this event happen. And it's, of course, also Fergus and Bernard as co-conveners. But there's also a lot more people who are working on it. We've got our wonderful technical team. Most of you have engaged with Nelly, with Anomolo. So just a big, big thank you for all the people who make this happen. And finally, I would like all of you to get up, please. Get some energy, get up. Also, the people online, use this opportunity, stretch a bit, get up, please, because I would like all of you to clap for yourselves. Thanks a lot for being here. This is what the TPP is all about. As Fergus was saying yesterday, the TPP is not the secretariat. The TPP is all of us. Thank you very much for being here. Use this opportunity, stretch a bit. We'll be sitting long enough. Okay, thank you. Now I do have to go to presentation mode because time is ticking. So as I said, the agroecology TPP and its projects, not in its core dimensions where we do a lot of other work as well, is structured around, I'm sorry, it's very bad to read. We'll get to the details, no worries. Is structured around 8 priority domains that aim to address critical knowledge and implementation gaps to accelerate agroecological transitions. I'll go through each of them briefly. If you would like to learn more about them, please visit our website. Get active on the community of practice. So the domains are quite diverse. There's a lot of topics being addressed there, but we would like to invite all of your perspectives later on as well. What are we not addressing yet and what should we be addressing? So the first domain is on the viability. We've heard a lot about that from Rick. We've had a lot of events on that in the past, but still there's a lot more to be done on creating evidence and providing that evidence in a meaningful manner to diverse stakeholders on the socioeconomic viability of agroecology. Then we've got the critical aspect of how agroecological approaches for pest, disease, and weed control are really meaningful for farmers in diverse contexts. The third domain is what we've heard about a bit yesterday on the metrics. That is, above all, the Transitions Metrics project, but as I've told you yesterday, also other projects within that domain. And of course, also another project, there is metrics being implemented and there's evidence being created on what can, should, and how be measured. Then we've heard a lot about policies also in the reflections this morning, and Alex gave us this wonderful presentation yesterday on the CFS tracking tool. That's not the only work we do on policy. Fergus gave you a lot of insights on how we engage in high-level science policy interfaces, and there's also other work that has been done in this regard. Further, we have a beautiful domain that, as you will see in a minute, is so far rather underserved by the TPP, not by its members. There's a lot of TPP members that work on this topic on better nutrition through agroecological approaches and through connecting producers and consumers, which is such a critical element of the agroecology elements and principles. But so far, the TPP itself in its project portfolio is not addressing that aspect very much. Then we've heard a bit about the aspects related to water management, water resources, and aquatic foods, including the revision of the 13 principles, but in a major project in Sri Lanka, that is also a key focus. And I think this is crucial, particularly here in Kenya. This year, we have a fair bit of rain. It's looking fairly green, but the last couple of years have been incredibly severe with water problems. And this is something that also in the CGRI initiative throughout most of the countries, we've seen that is one of the key concerns that farmers would like agroecology to address. So much more work to be done. Then absolutely crucial, soil health, land restoration, how agroecological approaches can be used to do so in a sustainable manner without creating problems later down the road, so to speak. And then very, very important as well, there's this clear, intuitive thought that the more diverse you are, both on farm and in the food system, you're more resilient. But there's not that much very strong evidence on it. So that's another key domain that the TPP aims to address. Now, what are we doing so far? Here again, you see the 8 priority domains at the top and at the bottom, and you see the diverse projects of the TPP, both integrated and aligned, mapped to these domains, right? On the top, you see the major focus of projects, and at the bottom, you see where some of these projects also contribute to these domains, despite that not being a major focus. I'm not going to go through each of the projects, obviously, and you've seen many of them in the posters during the coffee. Today, we'll have another poster session, and this is not even all the projects. So I think given the relatively young age of the TPP, it's quite impressive what a breadth and depth the portfolio has achieved, but there's much more to be done. And it's not just about the domains, it's also about projects that integrate domains, that work across domains. And of course, there's also projects that address critical knowledge gaps and research questions outside of the existing domains. So, but what you can quite clearly see is that the ones that are in lighter green are the ones that came on board last year. So you can see the portfolios growing. And we can see the metrics domain, the policies domain, that's quite well served, but others are less so. In the soil health domain, we're just about to start very soon a major project with WRI, the Aga Khan Foundation, but I'm hoping that we'll get much more in this regard as well, leveraging up on the catalytic seed funding we're receiving from Liechtenstein Development Services to co-design projects in this regard. But there's much more to be done. And above all, this is really just an inspiration for all of us to reflect upon later on, after we've heard also from our partners, David Amudavi, Monica Yato, Oliver Oliveros, and who was the fourth one? My mind is not working. Yes, Esther Penunia, of course, Esther. To get some diverse perspective from your perspectives, what you think the TPP should be focusing on in future projects. And then we'll sit down in breakout groups to discuss how that can be done, who would like to be on board for specific ideas, projects, developing it further, and how we can go about getting the money for it, because without it, we're not going to make it happen. So this is really just an inspiration for you to think about in the later breakout groups. There's no need to specifically address the domains. It can be something else as well. Emily will introduce that as well. But with this, I would like to close and thank you all very much once again.
Thank you, Matthias, for synthesizing the morning and also grounding the rules for the next panel discussion. So for this next panel discussion, could I please call Monica Yato, the co-chair of Agroecology Coalition and founder of the Indigenous Women and Girls Initiative. Ms. Monica, welcome. Also, Esther Penunia, Secretary General of the Asian Farmers Association. David Amudavi, representative of the African Union of Ecological Organic Agriculture Initiative. I think he's going to come back. And Oliver Oliveros, the coordinator of the Agroecology Coalition. Thank you. And I will take my seat. I'm just waiting for David a minute. Are we okay to start without David? And he'll catch up on us? Okay, great. So I think the more we know, the more we learn, the more we know nothing. And we need to learn more. And that's distressing. So before we look at knowledge gap, I would like to ask, let's clap for David, sorry. Thank you. What was one recent, I would like to ask each of you, what was one recent evidence or research process that you thought really affected positively or impacted the work you're doing? If any, that would be assuming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me speak on behalf of pastoralists and indigenous communities in this house and also beyond here. We have research gaps because currently the agroecology is not us, because we have people, foreign people, I call it corporates, who are bringing new things that we are not used to. So the research policy should speak about the issues that is affecting the peasant farmer, a farmer in the community, a farmer who is not a researcher, who depend on indigenous knowledge, the knowledge they used to do it before. But now, because of multinational influence and also corruption in our communities, has caused a lot of agriculture unsustainable. So we need to address issues that is affecting the community and the peasant farmer and the pastoralist. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think there's a lack of evidence. There's a lot. On the contrary, I was just browsing and I was realizing that there was a study made by Rachel Mason et al., which shows that doing some bibliometrics and network analysis show that in 1980s, there were only around a handful of publications on agroecology, but in 2018, more than 700 papers have been published in the field, and that has already been predicted even 10 years ago, and that continuously increases. We've heard yesterday those 1 million voices, the agroecology map. There's a lot of things that are going on the ground. There is a true cost accounting study conducted by the Global Alliance for the Future of Food, which tried to document the true cost of producing food, and they look at specific cases. Andhra Pradesh, for example, how successful it was, and what are the barriers and the challenges that they face to be able to implement agroecology. That's one of the most successful agroecology cases that we always cite. And yes, Swati is here, so you could talk. She could talk more about it. And so there's a dearth of evidence and inspirations for us to move further. And there's also the indigenous peoples. 25% of the world's population is inhabited by indigenous peoples. For laws that exist and they continue to exist, what type of evidence do we need to show that evidence works? So we need to bring in all this into bear and amplify all of this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, and good morning to everyone. So while reflecting on this question, first question, I was thinking what has been useful for me and for us in AFA is basically what comes along our mandate and therefore our priorities. So AFA is a regional farmers organization, and we want to facilitate climate resiliency for our members. And we see it through agroecology because our members have said that sustainable agriculture, permaculture, agroecology has helped them. So in terms of the knowledge and evidence that were useful to us, first is what Oliver said. This study on the true cost accounting of Andhra Pradesh, because it's not only talking about production, increase in income, but also what is the effect of the community-based natural farming in the health, in the soil, and in the social capital, the solidarity of the women farmers, especially in this. But aside from that, we also benefited from the work of Climate Focus that was launched during COP28. It's titled Untapped Potential, where it clearly shows that only 0.3% of international public climate finance goes directly to sustainable agriculture and small-scale farmers. And this research was commissioned by 9 regional farmers organizations. That means we were part of the research design processes and the analysis, and also disseminating it by telling the results in the various side events that we were part of in COP28. And then lastly is the IPCC report 2022, also released for COP28, because we wanted to be more engaged in COP28 last year as a farmers organizations, where it said that the most effective ways to be climate resilient is basically what we are already doing: integrated, diversified organic farming, crop rotation, as well as emphasizing the creation, the community-based solutions that build on local expertise and knowledge. So these things we held on to because AFA would like to advocate for agroecology, for climate resiliency, and facilitate capacity building for our members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. There is a lot that is happening and that is very encouraging around the landscape of agroecology. I will have another opportunity in this series. We'll be presenting results of work we have done in 15 countries, looking at some of the projects that have been implemented for the last 10 or so years that would have elements of agroecology. And indeed, one of the biggest projects which has been implemented in many countries in Africa, the Climate Smart Agriculture Project, which has a lot of components of agroecology, has been a good case to show that indeed agroecology can make fundamental change to the livelihoods of people. So there are cases also on small scale that show how applications of practices around the area of agroecology are contributing to food and nutrition security. They're also contributing to incomes for farm families. They're also contributing to families to get to access to markets and so on. And having said this, I want to say to an earlier comment that Rick reacted to my comment, and this is for us to show evidence that indeed agroecology is the way to go in having resilient and sustainable food systems. We should balance understanding the systems, but also intervening in a way that we make those systems resilient and productive. We can't run away from it. The systems are not just organic and are not neutral. We intervene through the various projects, through the various programs that we are handling. And I want to say, this is where we have to show. This is where we have to show the evidence and to be able to fight the narrative. I think the summary was done very well earlier on. Still, the question is there, can agroecology or organic practices feed the world, feed the nation? And how do you address that? What evidence do you have that to show actually indeed it can? And we have evidence, but evidence is not enough. And I'm encouraged to look at the question of how do we communicate this evidence in order to convince the policymakers, the investors, the development partners, so that they can put more resources into agroecology in terms of research and development. That is very critical for us to be able to do that. Secondly, the multinational companies, if you don't mind, it's very important. They keep also strengthening the narrative that agroecology-based systems cannot feed the world. And the question is, how do we actually engage with them? And thank you very much, Nancy, for saying it's time also to see how do we engage with the other people on the other side, because they'll continue to be competitive enough to show that you guys, you can't succeed. We are the people succeeding, walking the corridors of power, walking the corridors of those who influence where funding should go. And I think if we engage a bit more with such people, a bit more with development partners, and also with governments, I think we can also see the trend towards increasing investments in terms of research and development in the area of agroecology. Thank you, and I hope when we make this presentation of this study we've done, you will be motivated to see, indeed, it's important as we move forward, this question of what kind of interventions, how are we designing them in a manner that embraces the 13 principles. I feel if we do that and we come back to do assessments, we'll get very, very encouraging results. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I understand we do have evidence. It's the way maybe we communicate it or how we influence. Yesterday, we also saw the importance of advocacy, the importance of the enabling environments. But so would you think, Monica, for example, I know as your position with Women and Girls Initiative, what about the gender aspect? Do we have knowledge gaps there? Do we have evidence? Is there anything that we should be addressing in terms of knowledge gaps?
By the way, we don't have knowledge gaps. I think what the scientists are missing is that they are not inclusive in their research. And also you don't understand what are the issues that farmers are facing in the community. For example, I come from a dryland area and our issues are water, degraded land. We have a lot of deep gullies in some of those areas. We have issues of soil health. Nobody wants to speak about that. Now with the advertisement of these synthetic fertilizers. We are forced to buy them. Why don't you support our organic fertilizers? We have so many natural trees that we can make them out of that. Again, we don't understand the issues that are affecting pastoralists, let's say, because we have so many people talking badly about pastoralism. There are so many write-ups about pastoralism. That is our livelihood. What do you want us to do if you don't understand us? Help us walk the talk. And by us using this livestock manure, that is what we have been using before. How do you help us make fertilizers out of our living? How do we make agroecology valuable and also support initiatives that we are doing now? So again, we need to work with the researchers, help us also unpackage the narrative of agroecology, because even our own ministers of agriculture and environment don't understand what's agroecology. We need also to unpack this narrative as well, so that everybody else understand why we advocate for organic farming, why we need to take care of our soils, why do we need to integrate agroecology in our policies, starting from the basic county policies on climate change, also to the NDCs, to the NAPs. So again, we need also to understand that there's a livelihood that they need to be protected, a livelihood of indigenous person, and also protecting our territorial lands. We don't need to displace us because you need to plant trees. No, we don't need carbon, we need food. So again, how do you understand our livelihood? So that is the challenge we need to address. And also in this meeting, we need also to speak about the indigenous people that is being facing a threat because of a carbon market that we don't understand. How do we benefit from this carbon market as well? And also not leaving alone the food security that we are addressing. We live in a society where we live in under $1 shillings. And what we need is only food. So again, how do you make us understand that there's another market that is coming, carbon trading, that is also making us more displaced in our society? So again, let's interact. Let us also consider livelihood that has been there, that depend on indigenous knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I just to make sure I understood, you talked about really the issue of better understanding the livelihoods of pastoralist community and work on that interface, especially when it comes to agroforestry and integrating trees vis-a-vis external carbon project. Then you also talked about the importance of food security. Okay, so great. Thank you so much. And David, would you like to add something else on the organic or how do we advocate, or do we have the knowledge for well, for convincing the importance of organic or agroecological?
Yeah, thank you. I think in terms of evidence and the efficacy of organic agriculture to contribute to very desired outcomes about life, farm families need to have food on the table. And it is true in Africa, the question of food insecurity is very much with us. And I keep asking myself, when will Africa stop talking about food insecurity? When will that happen? And unfortunately, the number of people who are beginning to be food insecure continues to increase. In spite of the billions of dollars that are being invested in research, in big research institutions like the CGIAR centers, but the issue of food insecurity continues to increase. And why is that the case? And I think it's important that we ask these kind of questions. Is the answer therefore in diversified farming systems, including organic agriculture? I would say yes. Because if we continue to go and investing in monocultural based systems, that is the moment we continue to have this food issue of food insecurity continuous. And for us in Africa, and I believe in other parts of the world, organic agriculture and related systems, embracing very much the principles of agroecology in terms of diversity and so on, are the systems that need to be supported fully, but also to be supported with the necessary infrastructure, with the necessary possible technologies, and with the necessary credit support systems that can enable farmers to do their work more efficiently. So for me, I feel organic agriculture and also connecting it a bit more, not just on the issue of food security, but also the health component of it, food nutrition and health, the nexus between the two. We find that getting a perfect match with organic agriculture. And that is actually what we need to demonstrate. If we have some research work done to to show how people's health is better improved by consuming products out of organic farming systems, and how non-communicable diseases could start decreasing because of people consuming more organic. I think this would be part of the evidence that we need to show, so that it's not just business as usual to say organic agriculture is a minimalist approach of farming. It can't feed the world. It's not the case. It is simply because we haven't put in resources in terms of the requisite research, in terms of the support systems to get organic agriculture go beyond the minimal scale. The pilot cases that we see, how do we take them to scale? All of us, we are always concerned about how do we get good innovations, good interventions that have demonstrated that they can make a positive contribution to scale. And I feel there are so many good cases from the organic sector that we can do that. And BioVision Africa Trust, through some of the communication programs that we run around the continent with partners, we are trying to show how this can be done. And we believe we can also work with researchers. There's so much that some of you are doing very good work. But as someone mentioned yesterday, it still gets limited to publication, but not bringing it into use. So I want to say this, we need to move from constructs to concrete cases that we can show that indeed it works. And that is how we can do science differently. We make science to serve humanity and to ensure that as we continue to rely on our resources on this planet, today, as we keep saying, we are also conscious of what about the future generations. So, moderator, I want to say organic and related systems are the kind of systems that we should also consider alternative with the potential to get exactly what we are saying, more resilient, sustainable, and productive systems.
Thank you so much. David, I note really the knowledge gap around evidence of nutrition and health as a key knowledge gap that we still need to address. Others, it's more about how we communicate our evidence. Like, okay, thank you very much. And would anyone, Estelle, do you have any knowledge gaps, anything that you really think, wow, we still need to work on that to address our challenges?
Yes, of course, we have knowledge gaps, no? And actually, I was reflecting on the results of the Slido yesterday, where we ranked 3 priorities, and I was so happy because the what I ranked 3 was the one who were the ones who came out at that as the top 3. So basically, it's research on how to transition to agroecology, because farmers, especially in Asia, who were victims of the Green Revolution or practitioners of the Green Revolution in the 50s to 90s, so much of that traditional knowledge has been lost and somehow forgotten. Okay, and of course there are more challenges, especially brought about by climate change, brought about by the many conflicts that are happening in the region and in the world, and also brought about by the very strong presence of what we call industrial agriculture. So these challenges have to be addressed so that we could transition to agroecology. And we see, yesterday I was really overwhelmed by all these presentations of what the TPP has done. Very good work, very good work. But then I said, what can I take? What can I take? When my members tell me what happened in Nairobi, how can it benefit us? Okay, so what I was thinking is that, my reflection is that maybe there could also be a paradigm shift in how we do research. Okay. Monica said inclusive. Somebody said farmer as agency. Somebody said we have to involve, we must participate. I remember the yellow sticker there that we also made. And I saw that most of the yellow stickers are in participation. And what do I make sense out of this is maybe the kind of paradigm shift that we will have to do with research is if we can make it more of participatory action researches, one of co-creation, one of co-innovation, one that highlights, prioritizes, recognizes, and value the indigenous, traditional, and local knowledge of the farmers, the producers, and mix it with the scientist knowledge. So this thing, and I'm very like passionate about this, because just in the past 2 years, we had a collective action on digital agriculture and forgotten foods, where in partnership with GFAR and with other research institutions, we managed to conduct a survey on digital agriculture with 3,000 farmers, mostly phone call, and Excel sheet and Google Doc, and also with forgotten foods, about also the same number, about 5,000 in 18 countries. What are their practices? What are their challenges on forgotten foods? And this survey result became one of the reference for a global manifesto on forgotten foods, signed by many of the international research organizations. And then, because there is ownership and there is a sense of accountability from our members are saying, you surveyed us, you asked us, what happens next? Okay, so we said maybe we should make a proposal on how to operationalize this. So we had a collective action on making a concept note on forgotten foods, which will be a public good. Okay, so
Wow.
these things. Now, so, and now we are into, okay, now we have this concept note. So what happens next? So we must mobilize resources to operationalize this. So it's like this kind of co-creation, co-innovation brings us to the next levels of research, extension, application, usage, and thinking that and reflecting that this empowers the farmers at the local level and the farmers organization as an agency of the farmers. So co-creation, paradigm shift, participatory action researches. We did it before with farmers field schools, farmer climate schools. Why can't we do it now? Thank you.
Donors, hear us out, please. We need money. Thank you very much. Wonderful. And integrating indigenous and scientific knowledge in how we do things. Oliver, do you have
gaps that I was just thinking about is on use of economics and decision models to better understand how agroecological production can be structured through markets, studying consumer behavior, creating a demand for agroecology products in the same way that maybe 20 years ago, when organic is sort of like a niche market for the rich, for the elite, for the bobos, etc. But now we see organically produced products being available in supermarkets. But of course, organic does not necessarily mean agroecological. That could be industrially produced as well, right? So, but thinking is, how do we come up with studies that will allow us to better understand consumer behavior, market forces, to allow us to make sure that a market pathway is developed for agroecology products. After all, farmers, what they need is also to really have livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods, right? And so they, environment, they cannot eat carbon, et cetera, So they really need to make sure that there is market and farming becomes economically and financially viable for farmers in the fields. That's also one of the reasons why we see less and less people getting into agriculture, because they don't see agriculture as something that is promising. It's not even viewed as a career option. It is viewed as backward. It is for students who are not at the A level, et cetera, et cetera. Because we don't package agriculture, let alone agroecology, as something that is able to contribute towards job creation, right? So I think that's one. The second gap, I think, is when we talk about agroecology, and I think this is an inherent bias on agriculture. We always think about land-based farming, when in fact, when we think about sustainability, rich sources of protein, most of it are from coastal areas, fisheries and aquatic sectors. How can we apply agroecology in fisheries and aquaculture sector? So I think that's one area. It allows us to amplify the fact that agroecology is not just about land-based agriculture, it's all about all types of agriculture, including fisheries and aquatic farming. The second one is agroecology in the context of urban areas. We are in a rapidly urbanizing area. 80% of the world's population is urban centers. Yet in many cases of agroecology studies, these are mostly done in quote unquote rural landscapes. But what about agroecology in urban settings, right? So it gives us sort of like a modernizing a little bit the study on agroecology, and it allows people to, at the very least, be curious and get more young people to get into agriculture, because most of the young people are in the urban areas, right? So that's probably a tweak that needs to be done in terms of research gaps. And I also agree on the fact that on the nutrition and health nexus, and how does that really impacts on agroecology. And last but not the least, and I'm just reflecting on what Esther mentioned, research on research methods. On how do we do research? I mean, the ambit of the TPP is really in research, and its primary audience is the research and scientific community. I need to influence this community. We can't have this multiple set of projects with in a siloed approach, and each one has its own logic and log frame, right? And it has to be cross-cutting. It has to have, not just in terms of subject, but not in terms of object, but in terms of the process and methods by which research is done. Having actors, I mean, farmers and indigenous peoples, not as subject of research, but as actors of research. And I think this is really key. And there's a lot needs to be done insofar as, rethinking the way we do research. And I think that's a research gap in itself.
Well, thank you, Oliver, because you actually answered my last question, which was about recommendations for the TPP community on how to better connect research to action and what we would need to do to be more transformative, how we could be partnering and engaging differently. So I think having a clear paradigm shift and how to embrace transdisciplinarity and not work in silos. So researching about how we do research is one of your suggestions. Monica, do you think what do we need? What does the TPP community need to do science differently and to engage differently?
Thank you very much. And I think we need more researchers in the village so that we can support our work. In my community, I have over 700 farmers, and we are having our organic pesticide. So I don't know if we can have support so that we have this pesticide be tested in the labs, so that other government officials can agree and support that we can have organic pesticide, the foliar, and also fertilizers. We need to have labs in our community. So I don't know how this can be integrated into research. I think CIFOR-ICRAF can support us, and also with the CIPE. And also we have farmers in island areas where they farm coffee. We want to encourage our coffee farmers to do organic coffee, because they still use synthetic pesticides and to spray their farms. So again, we need support. If we want us to walk the talk and have and stop webinars and bring the actions to the community, let us support this transitioning bottom up, such that we have every farmer understanding why we need to go organic and why we need to take care of the soil. Because once they spray the soil to kill the weeds, it goes directly to the microbes on the soil. So again, how do we have scientifically tested pesticide and also fertilizers so that we can even convince our duty bearers? I remember one of our ministers saying, Monica, can you convince us if organic farming, if agroecology can feed the nation? I said yes, because 80% of food producers, if you go now to the markets now, 80% of food producers are women, and most of them are growing from small scale. So again, I convinced her that it can feed the nation. But again, we need researchers to help us also convince the nation and also put our arguments in policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for that. We have a few minutes to wrap up. So if I could hear from the two of you on those of how to do it, how the community should do different. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think I would strongly recommend that TPP also engages more with national and regional research systems. I think working in isolation is not the best thing. If you work in isolation, you kind of create a club mentality, and you can easily be labeled as the TPP guys. So how do we engage with the national research systems? If it is here in Kenya, we'd like to see TPP Kenyan chapter engaging with KALRO. If it's in Uganda, it's engaging with NARO, Tanzania, and so on. I think for me, that will be one way of understanding how the national agricultural systems operate and the contribution that TPP can bring on board at national level, as well as also at regional level. Talking of Kenyan case, I think we have major regional research centers. Yeah, ASERECA in Eastern Africa, CORAF in West Africa, and so on, CADESA. If TPP can reach out to these research institutions and networks, I think we can develop greater collaborations. Secondly, I also feel that the TPP should reach out to continental research initiatives. For us in Africa, I think there are several, and also if we get FARA on board to see how do we engage with FARA, there are components that are very relevant to which TPP can make a contribution. And I think it's important that other people see you have something to offer through the various experts, the practitioners, and whatever you pull together in terms of methodologies, in terms of research findings, insights, and how we can share across the board. If we can navigate this institutional landscape from national to continental level, that will be very good. And on the continental one, I want to suggest this for TPP as well. Our Comprehensive African Development Program has been monitoring how the African countries are making a contribution to the development of the agricultural sector. And data is very key. Is there a way that TPP can contribute through its research work, that it works with different partners to collect and avail relevant data that can go into the biannual review reporting mechanism? For me, I think TPP can make a contribution because this is one area where the member states look at themselves in a mirror on data on various aspects within the agricultural sector. And there's one important element where TPP can come in, the set of soil and water land use management practices, where I see quite a huge space for agroecology coming in. I've been part of that process, and I see that is one area that sometimes lacks data from different countries. And for me, I think TPP can play an important role in this. And then finally, I would suggest that TPP can actually work with the other actors to advocate for increased funding of our research work and associated interventions. As we know very well, and the studies have shown, investment in agroecology and related or allied fields compared to conventional industrial agriculture, they're very low. So if we really want to make impact and genuinely contribute to transformation of food systems, then we need significant investment in this. So I think TPP to some extent can make a contribution, working with other players, raising the relevance of this sector and the need to invest in it at different levels. And finally, I think we also need to agree for agroecology, which is really part of what contributes to the agricultural sector, and for many countries, to the economic development of our countries. Trade is very key. And there has been the question of promoting agroecological products. And I want to throw this back to the audience, to all of us. If we promote production of agroecological products, and we will also say we want to ensure increased access to markets for these products, how do we get these products recognized by the markets? Are the markets differentiating enough agroecological products from conventional products? I put this because it's an important area. If we really want to increase the economy part of agroecology through the programs we handle, then this is an issue I feel we need to look at. And if there'll be any need to consider in future some kind of standards for agroecological products, then this could also be considered. It's quite clear for organic products, it's quite clear for the rest of the products, but as we speak now, it's not clear for what you'd consider agroecological products. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Yes.
Would love to hear.
So basically, when AFA joined the TPP, it was because we feel that there must be research is important also for farmers organizations. And we can see here that many of the TPP members at that time in 2020, mostly scientific community, they could help us. But maybe the kind of research that, as I said, we wanted is basically consider us as farmers organizations as your equal partners. Because what do we bring to the table in terms of research? We bring to the table our experience, our knowledge, and more. Because we bring also to the table our capacity to advocate, to influence our governments. You know, we could rally our government officials if you want them to pass a policy. So something like that. So if you need dissemination of your work, if you need a partner in advocacy, we can be the one. Okay. As farmers organizations, we can be extension agents. We can disseminate the information. We can provide translation work for your researchers. Of course, give us some money to do the translation work, or something like that. But basically, what we offer is a partnership between farmers organizations and research community, especially I think what we will do now, what we need to do now, because we want more and more millions of farmers to transition into agroecology, is to help them be farmer researchers themselves. At the community level, they can document what are their experiences in transitioning. They can document the challenges. They can document the policies that they need for from the government. So why don't we harness this potential of the farmers, the producers, the indigenous peoples at the local level to partner with you, so that you can have that knowledge, that information at the local level, bring it up, consolidate it at the global level, and then we can help in advocating for these kinds of policies. Why not? Maybe that will be a good thing to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Esther. So I want to thank the 4 panelists for these great insights. Also, a lot to process. We've heard nutrition and health. We've heard about economic decision models. We've heard a few topics. So there's still need for science, which is really good. We don't know everything, but what I understand is it's how we communicate, how we do research with different. So first with the land users, with the farmers or pastoralists, which are the key agents of change, but also integrating other actors at regional level or working with national institutions. So I think these were very rich comments, and I would like everybody to thank our panelists for their insights. And what we're going to do now is we're going to spend some time for everybody to write down what they feel is the most important knowledge gap. So thank you very much for this session.